Hi, I'm Suzanne Mock with FeedSmart. We're at the Connor Ranch outside of Hempstead, Texas, and we've just videoed a feeding that happened a week or so after we installed the feeders. I wanted to visit with you a little bit about FeedSmart feeders and the idea of feeding multiple times per day in small meals for your horses. Bottom line, we had no idea what we had stumbled on when we developed the FeedSmart feeders back in 2008. I knew that we needed to feed our horses smaller amounts so that it would be better for their digestive systems. And so when we put our prototypes in operation, we did just that. We started feeding 4 times a day instead of the 2 that I had been feeding before. And what we found was an absolute shocking thing, and that was that when horses eat 4 times a day, they digest and utilize their grain so much better. There's no comparison. There's no wasted feed. They get complete digestion and utilization of their feed because they're not being fed an amount that's more than what their system can handle. Also, each feeding event gives the horse's digestive system an opportunity to process the grain. And with each feeding event, the average horse can process somewhere between 1.5 to 2 pounds of grain, fully and completely, without overloading their system and without wasting any of it. And so that's basically what the FeedSmart system allows you to do. It allows you to feed your horses enough feed each time to where they can digest and utilize all of it without any waste. And with the FeedSmart system, the way the feeder is designed, another interesting thing that we found was that because of the way it's designed, the feed comes down for all the horses all at one time. And the horses go into a centralized location where they can actually see all the other horses in the pasture around the feeder. And when that happens, what you've got is a situation where the horses are less anxious about feeding time. They become much more relaxed, because the traditional method of feeding horses in the tubs on the ground or the buckets on the fence line and only 1 or 2 times a day creates a dynamic that is volatile at least. Basically what you're doing is you're taking horses that haven't eaten for 10 to 12 hours at a time, and you're putting them all in an area where you always have a herd dynamic, a hierarchy. You've got a pasture boss, you've got a second, you've got a third, and so on down the line. Well, of course, you're not able to feed the horses all at one time. You have to feed your pasture boss first and work down the line. And with that, you create a situation where not all the horses are eating at the same time, so the hungry ones are anxious about getting their feed. Now, once they do get their feed, by that time the pasture boss has been eating for a little while, and they're starting to want to run around and see if they can steal other horses' feed. So because of the horses' line of sight, when they have their head down on the ground in the tubs or in the buckets on the fence line, they literally can't see the other horses in the pasture. And because they're passive animals, they feel the need to look up and run around and try to make sure that they stay out of the way and keep from getting hurt. Well, with the FeedSmart system, because they're fed in one centralized location where they can see all the other horses in the pasture, that causes a huge reduction in the anxiety involved with feeding times. And so what you end up with is you've got all your horses around the feed trough, and now, because they can see the other horses, because they're getting fed 4 times a day, once every 3 to 4 hours during the daylight hours, and because they know that there's always going to be another feeding time and another set of grain, they start to really relax and feeding time is less anxiety for them. They, matter of fact, to be honest with you, we've been shocked to see even early on, a lot of times horses, once they get on the Feed Smart feeders, they get so relaxed that they'll literally cock a hind leg while they're eating. And we all know that when a horse cocks a hind leg, there's no more relaxed than that. So the Feed Smart system allows you, I've got a cat advancing, so that's just part of being on a farm, you know. Sometimes you just have the cats and the dogs and things like that. Well, this is a cute little kitty. He wants a little attention. But I'm going to put him down, hopefully, for a while. I doubt it. Anyway, but the issue here with feeding 4 times a day is that it's so much healthier for the horses. And I will tell you right now that most of our customers have reported that they have no colics when they're feeding 4 times a day. We experienced that exact thing with our thoroughbreds. Here comes our kitty. I think I'll let him just be a hanger-oner. Anyway, so we experienced the same thing with our horses, with our thoroughbreds. When we put our first prototypes in operation back in 2008, from that time to the time that we sold our last horse, and that was in 2013, during that whole 5-year period of time, 5-year plus period of time, we never had another colic. And best I can figure, it had to do with the fact that we were feeding smaller amounts 4 times a day instead of the 1 or 2 feedings each day with a lot of extra grain. There was another benefit that we didn't expect with the Feed Smart feeders. Now, your feed dealers are not going to appreciate here in this part. We started feeding our horses 4 times a day, and basically what I did is I just took the amount of feed that each pasture full of horses would eat at one time, and I divided it by 4 for 4 feedings instead of the normal 2. So basically what I just think he's here. Anyhow, so basically what happened is
that's a climber
after
now.
a few weeks I noticed my horses just started looking really fat out there in the pastures. And so I thought, well, you know, I need to cut back on the amount of feed. So I did. I started cutting back on the amounts of feed that we were feeding them. And I continued to cut back until I got my horses stabilized, where they were at a body weight that I wanted to see them at, and they weren't gaining or losing any weight. Well, I've got little horses going on here too. Anyhow, so what I did after I got them stabilized, I thought, you know, I really need to go back and calculate how much less feed I'm feeding. And for our thoroughbred race horses, our breeding horses and what have you, I found that we were feeding over 27% less feed to maintain the same healthy body weight that they had in the past. And that was a shock. It was a beautiful shock to me, but a shock no less. And our customers report that, a lot of our customers report back to us that they're feeding a lot less grain as well to their horses by feeding them 4 times a day. The other thing I wanted to address before we leave you this morning is the panel system. That was the first issue that my husband and I faced. Our first feeding was great. The horses came around and ate, but by the second feeding, our dominant horse in the pasture had already figured out that she could run the other horses off. And so she proceeded to do just that. And I looked over at my husband, Rick, and I said, well, we got a feeder that'll feed them on time and like we want, but we still have this issue. Just at that time, I looked over, and beside one of our outbuildings, I saw some stock panels, corral panels. And I thought, wow, let's get these stock panels and let's anchor one of them off of each leg of the feeder, and then anchor them at the other end with a T-post so they're nice and solid, and let's see how that works. So that's what we did. We shooed all the horses away from the feed, picked up the feed, and we put up our corral panels. And once we did that, we short-cycled and fed the horses another feeding. and with the corral panels up. And miracle of all miracles, the dominant horse came up, the other horses came in, the dominant horse got hacked off because the other horses were there, and she proceeds to leave her section, but she had to walk all the way around the corral panel to get into another section. She did that once and moved that horse out of the way, and she did it one more time and moved the horse out of the way. And she settled in there, the other horses came in, and everything was just fine. And it was fine from that moment on. Every feeding after that, she would figure out her place, the other horses would come in, and everybody was happy. And that's exactly the same thing that we experience and our customers experience on a regular basis. The panels are a self-segregating system. I am Suzanne Mock with FeedSmart, and I just wanted to let you know some more details about our FeedSmart feeders. Feel free to call us or email us anytime for more information about the feeders, to purchase feeders. We sell direct to the public, and we are never out of reach for our customers. Customer service is our #1 priority at FeedSmart. We're horse people. We have our mobile phones on us all the time, and we try to make ourselves available to our customers 24/7. When it comes to your horses, you need somebody to be there for you all the time in case if you have a question, an issue, anything comes up. And we try our best to be there for our customers 100% of the time. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for your interest in our product.